Right. First thing is that health is a positive idea. In other words, we usually spend most of our lives dealing with problems. And I think this is a complete waste of a life. If you only have one life, don't waste it overcoming problems, because all that happens is then you have to move on to the next problem. So what happens if you take a positive view to life is that you start to take hold of opportunities. And that means you can race ahead. So the idea that for springtime, what you do is actually celebrate the blossoms, the buds, the life all around you. Now, you should be doing the same with your own life. So that makes a huge difference to how you approach architecture as well. If we're talking about architecture, then the essence of leading a healthy life is that we're all in this together. In other words, you can't really be healthy if your child is sick, or your mother is sick, or somebody else in the community is sick. So what this means is that we actually need a healthy environment within which we are healthy. And so that means that for the as soon as we move into the built environment, rather like what we have with a natural environment, everything is interconnected. Throw a plastic bottle into the tide here, it washes up in Tokyo. And so you can't say that there are boundaries or that there are limits or anything else. So once you realize that everything's interconnected, it means we also all have a responsibility, therefore, for everyone else's health. Now, when this comes, therefore, to architecture, we start to say that doctors don't actually heal you. Doctors, like if you have a broken bone, for example, doctors will put the two pieces of the bone together, they put them in the right relationship, they might plaster it up or whatever, but you do the healing, or if you like, your body does the healing. So once you start to say that the doctor doesn't heal but creates the conditions for healing, that changes everything. It changes the nature of what architecture is about, because if architecture is about healing, then the key thing that our built environment should do is allow us to heal. And that means that when we put up, what do I mean by healing perhaps? Well, let's say one of the huge problems facing people is broken relationships, for example. And what do we do with our typical house? We assume that it's a series of bedrooms, we assume that everybody eats together, we assume that there is one door which is supervised, we assume that your teenage children don't have their own door. Well, in other words, we build a house which is really stressful, and then we sell it, and all we do when we sell it is get a bigger house. Now, if we dealt with our house in a completely different way and put up a healing house, which was able, therefore, to heal relationships by reducing that stress, it makes our life that much better. Now, an architect can do some of that for you, but not all of it. And then that means that the first thing is to get your built environment to embrace the natural environment, because the natural environment is so wonderful, particularly here in New Zealand. Like, we just have an incredible natural environment. And then what do? We put up a house, we triple glaze it, we do everything else to isolate us from everything that's outside. So that I really don't like being even in a building like this. If I want to feel alive, I walk outside onto the wharf, and then I start to feel alive. Now, this means that there's a whole life out there which is wanting to give us life, and we spend our time in buildings which isolate us. No wonder we get into all sorts of stress. No wonder we can't sleep. No wonder relationships break up, because it's an impossible situation. But as soon as you open away the house, this is just out in front of my house, and what you've got there is, that happens to be a crowd of students which I'm talking to, but what it means is those students, at the end of a couple of days, they've had a couple of great days at the beach. So they've talked to the birds, they've felt the breezes, they've done all those things. And this means that they're allowing the natural environment to inform their environment. Now, this means that when we come to something like organising your house, simple things. Don't shower inside. Now, you would say, but of course I've got to, we always have the shower down where the bedrooms are. This is really absolutely silly, because if you want to do something like build a leaky home, all you do for a leaky home is build a wall all around the outside, insulate it, put in triple glazing, and then walk inside and have a shower, because all that shower does is fill the whole of the air inside the house with steam, with moisture if you like, and then you boil a kettle for a cup of tea, more steam, then you invite a group of people around like you to talk to me, more steam. In other words, what we've got is a situation where we have all this moisture inside the house which has got to get out. And what we do is everybody keeps assuming that you've got an enemy out there which you're trying to stop getting in. No, leaky homes are caused by having all this moisture inside, sealing up your house, and then of course everything rots, including you. So if you want to overcome a leaky house, forget all of the stuff that the government's feeding you. It is completely wrong from an architectural point of view. A building like this would be working against a leaky home in which you have a separate bathhouse, for example. So one of the pluses of that is that it doesn't matter if a bathhouse leaks, because you're going to be wet anyhow. So if you're inside and you're having a shower, then let all the steam go out, and then preferably let it go out and feed the trees. Let it show up as spring blossom, like get integrated. Now, this is a completely different approach to architecture. So don't kid yourself that we are overcoming leaky homes. Right out there, right as I talk, we are building them in their hundreds, and we have a huge problem coming. So a house like this just happens to be my own shower, but I just shower outside, or the bath has enough roof over the top. It's a storm, like, then okay, you just turn off the storm. But if you're in a place like Auckland, you can actually shower and inside, and this keeps you healthy. And along the way you talk, like, I don't know how much time all of you spend sitting in a little box, a terrible environment, and you might be cleaning your body, but you're ruining your soul. Like, the worst thing we have is a shower box. I mean, it is insane. If you want to have a shower, go out under a tree, talk to the birds, feed the roots of the tree with the water, and then you've got this totally integrated system. And along the way you can sing, you can have fun, you can do all those other things. But don't mix it up with the rest of the house, which is doing something else. So this means that if you want to build a leaky home, just go right ahead. But don't say after this lecture that I didn't tell you what a leaky home was. And this means that, okay, all the lawyers are making money out of leaky homes, everybody at the moment is making a huge amount of money out of leaky homes. So it's no wonder we're going on building them. But if you want to lead a healthy environment, then change everything, because you shouldn't be doing that. So this means, therefore, that healthy cities and healthy homes strengthen relationships. And that first relationship is between inside and outside, but it also means the relationship between us. So that all of us, as soon as we sit here like this, it's not really me talking to you, it's about the process of us building up a relationship. And what I've got to do is, at the end of this, the only thing which would bother me is silence. Provided you hate me or love me, that's fine, I can deal with that. But what that means is, if you love me or hate me, at least we've got a relationship. But if it's just silence and nothing happens, then who cares? Why should I bother? So this means, therefore, individuals can make dramatic changes and institutions can't. So you can change your life very quickly, the council can't. What this means, therefore, is that institutions are threatened by change. The Auckland City Council hates the thought of change, so they don't get into change. But you as an individual do. This is what we call the curve of counterproductivity. Now the way I explain this to engineering students, and they understand instantly, is that if you drink a huge amount of beer and to the point where you're chundering and you can't remember the last lot that you had, it's a complete waste of money. Whereas if you drink, it's the first few glasses of beer, you get a high lot of euphoria. And then once you reach a point where it all starts to go downhill, if you stop drinking there, you can then explain to the engineering students how they can stay constantly drunk. And they say, but that's a fantastic idea. You mean I can save money? Well, of course you can save money. Now, it's the same thing with all of life. So that we almost always live past what we call the peak of counterproductivity. And that peak of counterproductivity is this point here. So all that you do, like if you eat more, and you can walk through the rest of the hall if you like, and you'll have all these people saying, no, don't eat more. What they're really doing is saying, eat better. Eating better is about pushing up that curve of counterproductivity. Now, we've got to do exactly the same thing with architecture, because if we go on building, we build so much, then people have this huge mortgage, then they've got to spend all their time working to pay for the mortgage, and eventually they don't have a life. Like, most of our houses, in fact, are prisons. And this is really, really sad. Now, what I'm really saying is that architecture is also a political question. So if you take something like our nuclear free stance, for example, then this was a grassroots affair. It was a bottom-up affair. It didn't start with the government doing anything. Affordable housing is what you build yourself. Of course, that's obvious, isn't it? Because if you've got an affordable meal, that's the one you cook for yourself. It's not one where you go out to a restaurant, because a restaurant has got overheads, they've got to pay staff, they've got to throw out food. It immediately becomes expensive. Individuals are interested in having a home. Now, there's complete conflict here. So if you want a healthy home, you've just got to do it yourself. Sorry about that. It's like, I'm not saying it's easy. Diversity and complexity. It all ends up by being different if everybody's doing their own place, as opposed to the situation where we end up with box after box after box. They're all the same. And so what we've got to do is reach the point where we start to say, what's livability? Now, I'm not going to read all of that, but clearly livability for the ordinary person here, I'm sure for most of you, it means a garden, it means some flowers, it means a place in the sun, it means all those things. And you talk about what does livability mean for the council? It means apartments, it means motorways, it means making your life unlivable. Like, I don't want the council to go anywhere near my life. When they start to talk about livability, they don't know anything about livability. Livability is not a great mystery. Most of you don't lead a livable life because our architecture is stopping you. Deal with the architecture, and then you'll suddenly discover you're set free. So this is brilliant. So what this means is therefore that when you let people build their own houses, they all end up by doing amazing stuff, because all of you are different. When I look around at all of you, I see every one of you dressed differently. But when I look at your houses, I see every one of your houses looks the same. Now, something's wrong here, and I can tell you what it is. It's because when you wake up in the morning, you feel cheerful, so you put on red, you want to influence somebody or other, so you put on your favourite coat or whatever it may be. So you do all of these things, and then, of course, you feel like a person. How long is it since you woke up and thought, this house I'm in is fantastic? Now, there's something wrong if you don't do that every day. So this means that people learn from their mistakes, but councils don't. We are sitting right here in the middle of an earthquake zone. This should be a red zone. This building should never have been built, because if there is a modest earthquake, underneath here is a swamp. That means if there's an earthquake, you probably won't be able to get out the door there, because I'll be out so fast I'll be ahead of you. Now, if we know there's a tsunami coming, then okay, this you can't see it, I'm afraid, but there is not a living person in the whole of Fukushima, so I went up to Japan after that. But at least you know it, because this is not so different from what you're seeing in the papers in the last couple of days. All of this sort of thing is what you're seeing right here. So why are we building this sort of stuff here? The reason we are is because the council's doing it, and the council couldn't care less about you. Forget about the Wynyard Quarter. The Wynyard Quarter is only about economics. It's only about making money for somebody else. You are supposed to come down here and spend money. Now there's something seriously wrong. If you have to spend money to be healthy, take another look, because somebody is kidding you. They're telling you that you have to buy things from a consumer society to work your way out. So this means, therefore, that when you come to your own place, you see all these amazing structures. So what does the council do? They condemn them, and they tell you can't live like that, and they tell you all of these other things. They're not interested in you or your health. Your health might be about living simply, living close to nature, having fun, relating to other people, good glass of wine. All of these things are actually what you should be doing. If you do that, then your building only needs to be minimal, because the main thing about building is not to let it get in between you and life. So when you do that, then this is my front door. Now you might say, gee, that's a bit of a wreck. But it's marvellous, because when somebody's marriage is broken up, they come down to my place and they're bursting into tears, and then we have a cup of coffee, and then they look around and they say, gee, I live in this incredible $5 million house and you live on nothing. And then they start to say, why aren't you unhappy? And you say, no, hang on, you're unhappy. You've come down here to find out how to be happy. Best thing you can do probably is get rid of your house to start with. Get rid of all that stuff, because the stuff is actually getting in between you and life. And when I'm down there, sitting on the chair with a glass of wine, I never manage to get a book read, because if I sit out there 2 minutes and somebody has arrived to talk to me. And so as soon as they arrive to talk to me, we're into what a house should be. Strengthening relationships, making you more healthy, building community, all of those things. And so what we've got is, first of all, you've got to take responsibility for yourself and your own life. And then, as I say, you're not going to let somebody else make love for you, are you? I mean, they have all the fun, and you say, oh, it'd be fantastic, because they take the responsibility and all they have to do is pay them to do it. Now, I would say, you idiot. And so you've really got this all sorted out. It's just that the whole mechanism is kidding you that you shouldn't be doing it yourself. Look, if you want somebody to pay somebody else to make love for you, then I would say that I can't help you with architecture, because you've lost the plot. But once you work that one out and come back to me, I say, yeah, I can carry on from there. We can build on that and make something worthwhile out of it. So the essential thing is that nobody else can lead a healthy life. You've got to do that yourself. And to lead a healthy life, you need healthy architecture. And I've raced through this at great speed, but summing all that up, I would say that what the emphasis I put is really that it's also a political question. And so this means it's very hard for you as an individual to deal with your own health if you're in an unhealthy environment. So what we're here for today is to start a revolution. And so now I've got the revolution underway, I think I can take a break.